The email arrived at 2:43 in the morning. Outside my hotel window, snow drifted quietly across the streets of Bergen, Norway. The city was asleep. I wasn't. I had spent the last 16 hours preparing the final presentation that could save my company's biggest international contract. When my phone buzzed, I expected another last-minute request from my director. Instead, I opened an email with the subject line, "Employment Status Update." I frowned. At this hour? That couldn't be good. I opened it anyway. My heart sank before I even reached the second sentence. Effective immediately. Your employment with Ashford Interiors has been terminated. Your company accounts and travel access have been permanently disabled. That was it. No explanation. No thank you. No phone call. Just two cold sentences that erase 7 years of loyalty. I immediately opened the company travel app. Access denied. Then my corporate credit card. Declined. I checked my personal bank account. After paying for meals during the trip, I had less than $60 left. I was over 4,000 miles from home. Alone, jobless, and somehow expected to find my own way back to Chicago. The first person who came to mind wasn't my boss. It wasn't human resources. It was my 8-year-old son, Noah. Before leaving, he had hugged me so tightly that I could barely breathe. "Promise you'll be home for my science fair, Mum." "I promise." Now, I wasn't sure I could keep it. My name is Claire Bennett. For 7 years, I worked as Senior International Sourcing Manager for Ashford Interiors, one of America's fastest-growing luxury furniture brands. The company loved using words like integrity, partnership, family. They printed those words on office walls. They repeated them during company meetings. They even included them in every employee handbook. But behind closed doors, people were numbers. If you solved impossible problems, management took the credit. If something failed, someone beneath them took the blame. For years, I convinced myself that hard work would eventually matter. I was wrong. 3 weeks earlier, my director, Richard Halley, had walked into my office carrying a thin black folder. "We've got a disaster. Our Scandinavian supplier is cancelling their partnership." I looked up. Why? They're overreacting. That answer immediately told me he wasn't telling the truth. Suppliers don't walk away from $30 million contracts because they're emotional. Something had happened. Something serious. Richard tossed the folder onto my desk. "I've booked you on tonight's flight. You've got one job. Fix it." "No." "Good luck." "No." "Thank you." "Thank you." Just fix it. The supplier was a family-owned woodworking company hidden deep in the Norwegian mountains. Unlike Ashford's glass offices in Chicago, their workshop smelled of fresh pine, cedar, and hand-finished oak. Machines hummed softly. Craftsmen laughed while they worked. People actually seemed proud to be there. Their owner, Eric Larson, met me at the entrance. He didn't smile. He didn't shake my hand. He simply asked, "Are you here to defend your company?" I answered honestly, "I don't know yet." That caught him completely off guard. Instead of starting negotiations, I asked if he would show me the workshop. For hours, I walked beside carpenters, designers, and engineers. I asked questions. I listened. I watched. Then Eric placed a thick folder on the conference table. Inside were dozens of unanswered emails, late payments, broken promises, changed delivery schedules, price reductions forced on his company without agreement. The final page showed something even worse. Richard Halley himself had accused Eric's team of inflating costs during a video meeting in front of every department manager. It wasn't just disrespect. It was humiliation. Eric closed the folder. "We don't need your company's money. We need partners we can trust." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said something no executive from Ashford had ever said. They were wrong. I'm not here to defend mistakes. I'm here to fix them. The atmosphere changed almost immediately. Not because I offered discounts. Not because I made promises. Because for the first time, someone had acknowledged the truth. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked harder than I ever had before. I reviewed every delayed payment, corrected impossible production schedules, helped redesign the shipping timeline, even joined the workshop floor to understand how each piece of furniture was handcrafted. Slowly, conversations replaced arguments. Arguments became solutions. By the end of the 3rd week, we had created something incredible. A brand new 5-year partnership worth almost $30 million. The signing ceremony was scheduled for the next morning. That night, I video called Noah. He proudly held up a cardboard volcano he'd built for school. "Look, Mom, it actually erupts." I laughed for the first time in weeks. "It's amazing. Will you really be home Friday?" I wouldn't miss it for the world. After we hung up, I spent another hour reviewing the final contract. Everything was ready. Everything. Except the future I thought I still had. Because at 2:43 the next morning, the termination email arrived. No warning. No explanation. Just silence. I could have called Richard. I could have begged human resources. Instead, I printed the unsigned $30 million contract, placed it carefully inside my leather briefcase, put on my coat, and walked through the falling snow toward Erik Larsen's workshop. Somehow, I knew my career wasn't ending. It was about to begin somewhere completely unexpected. The snow had almost stopped by the time I reached Erik Larsen's workshop. It wasn't even 7 in the morning, yet lights already glowed through the large factory windows. Inside, dozens of craftsmen were preparing the showroom for the contract signing ceremony. No one expected me to arrive looking like someone who had just lost everything. Erik noticed my face immediately. "You haven't slept." I quietly handed him my phone. "Read the email." He adjusted his glasses and slowly read every word. When he reached the last line, he looked up at me. "They fired you?" "This morning. They cancelled my company access, my flight home, everything." For several seconds he didn't say a single word. Finally, he placed the phone on the table. "I knew your company had poor leadership. I didn't realize they were foolish enough to destroy the only relationship they still had." I forced a smile. "The contract belongs to Ashford. My job doesn't matter anymore." Erik slowly shook his head. "No, Claire, that's where you're wrong." He walked toward a large window overlooking the workshop floor. Every employee stopped what they were doing when he entered. Not because they feared him, because they respected him. Then he turned back toward me. "Do you know why we agreed to continue these negotiations?" I shrugged. "Because the numbers finally worked." He smiled. "No, we stayed because we trusted you. If anyone else had walked through that door 3 weeks ago, we would have ended the partnership immediately." His words hit me harder than the termination email. For the first time in years, someone wasn't talking about my position. They were talking about me. Erik opened another folder from his desk. "This arrived yesterday." Inside was a proposal from another American company, Sterling Home Collective, one of Ashford's biggest competitors. "They've been trying to work with us for almost 2 years, Erik explained. "I rejected every offer. Why? Because I believed our partnership with Ashford could still be repaired." He paused before continuing. "But Ashford just made its decision. So now, I'll make mine." An hour later, Erik made a single phone call. Less than 45 minutes after that, a black SUV pulled into the workshop parking lot. A woman stepped out wearing a navy wool coat and carrying a leather portfolio. She walked confidently into the conference room and introduced herself. "My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Sterling Home Collective." She shook my hand firmly. Eric has told me a great deal about you. I assumed she wanted information about Ashford. Instead, she asked a question I hadn't heard in years. Claire, what do you actually want from your career? I wasn't prepared for that. Every interview I'd ever attended focused on revenue. Targets, deadlines, profits. No one had ever asked what kind of life I wanted. I looked down at the coffee cup in my hands. I want to be home when my son needs me. I want to stop apologizing for missing birthdays. I want to work with suppliers instead of fighting them. I want respect. And honestly, I'm tired of proving my value to people who've already decided it doesn't exist. Victoria listened without interrupting. When I finished, she smiled. You've already proven your value, just not to the right company. She opened her portfolio. Inside was an employment contract. Senior Vice President. Global Supply Partnerships. The salary alone was almost 40% higher than my previous position. Unlimited decision-making authority over supplier relationships. Flexible international travel. Additional paid family leave. And one sentence immediately caught my attention. Employee travel will never interfere with immediate family milestones unless voluntarily approved. I read that sentence 3 times. Then quietly asked, "Is this real?" Victoria smiled. People perform their best work when they aren't forced to choose between their careers and the people they love, for reasons I couldn't explain. My eyes filled with tears. Meanwhile, news had already reached Chicago. Richard Halley called me 9 times in less than an hour. I ignored every call. Then the text messages started. "Call me immediately. We can fix this. Don't make a mistake you'll regret." Finally, he left a voicemail. His confident voice had disappeared. "Claire, there seems to have been a misunderstanding. We'd like to discuss bringing you back." I laughed quietly. For 7 years, my loyalty had been invisible. Now suddenly, I mattered. Not because they valued me, because they were terrified of losing the contract. Later that afternoon, Eric officially informed Ashford that all negotiations had ended. Not because of pricing, not because of production, because trust had been broken beyond repair. Within days, Sterling Home Collective completed negotiations. The agreement became the largest international partnership in the company's history. And this time, I wasn't just managing the relationship, I was leading it. Before leaving Norway, I thanked Eric for everything he'd done. He drove me to the airport himself. As we unloaded my luggage, I tried to repay him for my ticket home. He refused. Then he said something I'll never forget. Never confuse being important with being appreciated. Important people solve problems. Appreciated people are never abandoned after solving them. I carried those words with me all the way home. When my flight landed in Chicago, I spotted Noah before he saw me. He was standing beside my sister, holding a small cardboard trophy from his science fair. The moment he recognized me, he dropped everything and ran. I knelt just as he threw his arms around my neck. "You came!" His tiny voice cracked with excitement. "You promised." I hugged him tighter than I ever had before. "I'll always come home." For the first time in years, I truly believed it. 6 months later, Sterling Home Collective opened its new global sourcing division. Eric and his entire team flew to Chicago for the celebration. During the ceremony, Victoria invited me onto the stage. Instead of talking about contracts or profits, she introduced me with one sentence. "Great businesses are built on trust, and trust begins with people like Claire Bennett." The audience stood and applauded. But the only person I looked at was Noah. He was sitting in the front row, smiling proudly. That smile meant more than every promotion I'd ever received. A month later, business magazines reported that Ashford Interiors had lost nearly 40% of its premium furniture sales after several international suppliers ended their partnerships. Richard Halley quietly resigned before the end of the year. No one ever called me again. Sometimes people think the best revenge is watching those who hurt you fail. They're wrong. The best revenge is building a life so peaceful, so meaningful, that you no longer need revenge at all. Because the company that abandoned me in a foreign country thought they had ended my career. Instead, they introduced me to the future I was always meant to have.